All right, so the crash is coming, I promise. But there's actually a pretty interesting and dynamic race leading up to that moment that I want to talk about first. But if you're just here for the carnage and the crash breakdown, that's at the very end. You can just skip there right now. All right, it's Alviso with the typical fast guys. If you don't know who they are, I'll point them out as we go. They're going to make themselves really clear in today's race. But we have a couple of notable teams today. Thirsty Bear in the light blue kit. There were 3 of them, I think, with Jerome as their leader. He is the sprinter who is pretty much in every one of my Alviso videos. And then also San Jose Bike Club. There were maybe 6 or 7 of those guys. You can see them in the light blue kit right here. And I'm flying solo, as usual, so I want to break this race down. There was a lot that was going on. There's a lot of takeaways, so let's just get right into it. All right, first lap, first attack. I see this Thirsty Bear guy on front, and I wiggle through this gap right here. We're coming through a corner. This is the crosswind. I don't know, the timing was good. I raced really aggressive at Alviso, and there's no real reason for this other than the fact that I just want to get away in a breakaway, right? Like I always say, guys, it's much easier to sprint from a group of like 4 than it is from a group of 40. So if you can find good timing to make something happen, catch people out of position like I just did with the Thirsty Bear rider, awesome, go for it. In this case, it drew out Timmy, who is the San Jose Bike Club sprinter, who's in my draft right now. I commit some energy to this. There's a few reasons for that. So I know Timmy's going to do work. Timmy also wants to join a breakaway. And if he's on San Jose, that means there's like 5 or 6 other guys back in the field who aren't going to do any chasing, which leaves behind Jerome and the Thirsty Bear guys, who are now forced to get on the front and do some chasing if they want a chance at winning this bike race. And Timmy and I spend the next couple of laps together, rolling really smooth turns, keeping the pace nice and fast, and consistency. Remember what I say, guys. Consistency is efficiency. So this is good. Even though I'm off the front in a breakaway, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm doing more work. See, like in a chase group, like in this case the peloton behind, you'll have riders like trying to solo bridge, and then you'll have everyone kind of sitting up looking at each other, like wondering who's going to chase. And that makes the pace really surgy. It'll be really fast for a moment, and then really slow, and then really fast, and that is not efficient. So anyway, as I've been talking, I see this group of 2 jump across, and I am pleasantly surprised to see that it is Blaine and Nick. Notice neither of them are on Thirsty Bear, which is interesting, right? Because, like, what's Thirsty Bear doing? They're going to have to continue chasing because I am going to continue working with these 2 guys, and unfortunately, Timmy gets dropped right here. And this is looking great otherwise. My only wish is that Timmy was able to stick with it. And you might be wondering, Timmy's a good sprinter. Why on earth would I want Timmy to be in the breakaway with us? That looks, by the way, like it has a good chance to make it to the finish. Well, think about it. He's got 6 teammates behind who aren't doing any work right now. But once he gets reabsorbed by the peloton, all those guys are going to crank up the chase effort to an 11. And it's just a numbers game. If there's 3 of us in this breakaway group, well, think about the 6 SJBC guys and then the 3 Thirsty Bear guys. So it's 3 versus 9. I don't like those odds. But when Timmy was with us, that was 4 versus 3 Thirsty Bear guys in our favor. So I like those odds a lot better. But these guys know how to ride a breakaway. I mean, we have a decent gap. We're rolling really consistent and smooth turns. We're forcing Thirsty Bear to chase. So I continue to commit energy to it. But, you know, going from one breakaway directly to another breakaway, I'm not going to lie, it kind of stings. So a couple kilometers later, we are still rotating nicely, but I do see in my rear camera here a couple of riders who have just made the bridge across. And it looks like Thirsty Bear finally turned it on, and it appears as though Jerome has bridged across with one other rider. So, again, yet another reshuffle of this front group. Now it's a big threat for San Jose, right? Because now it's got the major teams, it's got some of the breakaway guys in it, and they're not having any of that. So they kind of finished the job here, and peloton all back together. I am tired as hell, but it's prime time for a counterattack. So I need to stay sharp. I need to stay in position. And sure enough, the San Jose guy just powers right on by. Stay on it! And I don't know if you can hear that. I'm yelling at Nick now to stay on it because I cannot have these 2 guys get away off the front, right? This is Jerome. This is San Jose. These are the 2 major teams represented, and that would be race over. So I have to commit this little bit of extra energy, even though my legs are on fire, I'm dying. I just have to make sure it's all stitched back up. And the next 8 kilometers or so can be summarized as me staying in the top 10, usually the top 5 or so, and making sure that a group doesn't get away with the right composition to make it to the finish. That's kind of the name of the game here if you're racing solo without teammates. Make sure that the big teams do work when they miss it, and also make sure that a breakaway doesn't get together that contains all the big teams, because then you're going to be stuck chasing, and nobody wants to be stuck chasing. But I can't keep chasing them all back, and this is the one that I let go. So in a perfect world, I chase down every attack and still have the energy to duke it out in the field sprint, but like, I'm not that fit, and that is just not how this sport works. I decided to let this one specifically go because, well, first of all, I'm really tired, and also, it's notably missing San Jose Bike Club.
Go San Jose! Go ahead! Guys, we're gonna ride.
You can even hear me right now say to Jerome, who is on my right, "No, San Jose? Okay, go ahead." Because they have the numbers to chase this back, I'm going to rely on them to do most of the work on the front of the bike race in order to save energy, right? There's only 7 kilometers left, but then just a few meters later, I'm not exactly filled with confidence, and I rip a 1,300-watt bridge effort here, kind of half in frustration and half in desperation. And I don't even have to look back. I just know that Jerome is in my wheel, because if the roles were reversed, that's exactly what I would be doing. So with that group of 4 off the front, we spend the next about a half a lap or so kind of chasing, like not really getting organized. So that brings us to 4.5 kilometers, or about a lap and a half to go. And there's this really threatening break off the front by about 10 seconds. And here's Jerome, who's made his way to the front in order to screw up the chase effort, which is working, by the way. I'm doing 40 watts and everyone else is coasting. So it's really now or never if I want to win this race. And I decide that I still want to win this race. So I put in this big acceleration and surge in power to try to get a gap. And it works, except for this one jerk who just won't leave me alone. Of course, it's Jerome. But now I'm committed, and I'm starting to pay for those early efforts. But I have to continue on here, even though I have my rival sprinter in my draft. You can see that I'm picking up some dropped riders here, but you know, it's either now or never. Like I said, it's race over if I don't chase this back. And eventually I close the gap down, but not before Jerome's teammate puts in one final devastating attack just to stay away from me just a little bit longer as we come through 1 lap to go. And that's right about when Blaine decides to put in a final dig, because he doesn't want it to come down to a field sprint. He's not a field sprinter, which is a smart move. And I start to chase, but then I think better of it, and I'm like, no, I'm already seeing cross-eyed. There's 2.6 kilometers to go. I have 2 big teams still behind me that I'm going to depend on to chase Blaine back here in the closing kilometers. What I want to do in this moment is just to fall back a few spots. See, I'm doing 0 watts. Get in the wheels and catch my breath. But instead...
Yikes!
that happens.
I'm done.
All right, so what exactly is going on here? Well, Blaine's still off the front. I've made it really clear I'm not going to chase anymore, and this San Jose guy's like, now's my chance. And he attacks through this corner, cuts off the front riders, and basically pinches the front of the peloton, which just stacks everybody up and eventually causes this pile-up. Oh, and I didn't realize until after this race when I was reviewing the GoPro footage that Nick almost came right into the back of me, so that was a real close call. So happy to report that other than some road rash, and, you know, some banged up bikes, stuff like that, there were no serious injuries, and no hard feelings. Like, we're all buddies out at Alviso. So with that being said, was this crash preventable? Absolutely. And my suggestion for new riders to the sport is just ride a predictable line, and for a lot of reasons, save your attacks for somewhere other than the apex of a corner. So no sprint today, sorry about that, but thanks for staying tuned, guys, and I'll catch you at the next one.